All right, I am super excited to share this recipe with you today. Not only because I love it and I love to eat it, but because this recipe helped me win the MasterChef finale, Season 13, United Tastes of America. Today I'm going to show you a Raviolo al Uovo, or an egg yolk ravioli. We're going to make that mushroom cream sauce that goes with it, and it's going to be absolutely wonderful. I'm going to show you my pasta recipe. We're going to see how to season this ricotta perfectly, make that beautiful cream sauce. Let's get into it.
When I make fresh pasta, I always use two different types of flour. The first one I'm going to use is a semolina flour. This is made from durum wheat. It's a little bit coarser, and this is really going to give us nice texture and color to our pasta. I'm going to hit the tear button there, and I'm going to add in 100 grams. See, and this is why it's great to use a kitchen scale. I may have thought that a half cup should have been 100 grams for me, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes you pack it differently. Sometimes humidity is different. So no matter what, when you're making a dough, always utilize this kitchen scale. Now, some people like to use a double O flour or a tipo O flour from Italy. I found that regular old all-purpose flour is, one, more accessible, and two, it works really well in this pasta dough. So I'm gonna do an equal amount, again, right at 100 grams of all-purpose flour. We've got our 200 grams there. Last but not least, for the dry ingredients, I'm gonna add in about 4 grams of kosher salt. Salt's not only going to help with flavor, but it also helps with the elasticity and the texture of the dough. Going to give that a nice little mix. And we'll move on to our wet ingredients. Now, when it comes to the wet ingredients, a lot of times I'll see a mixture of whole eggs and oil, or egg yolks and water and oil and all these things. I use just 2 items when I'm using my wet ingredients. I'm going to use egg yolks and I'm going to use water. I find that I don't like to add oil to my pasta dough, and if you're using just egg yolks, you're getting enough of that richness from the yolk that you don't need to add extra fat from oil. I'm going for 93 grams of yolks for this recipe. Like I said, having a kitchen scale really helps with this. The best way to separate these eggs is to have one bowl here and have the bowl to catch your yolks there. We're gonna crack the egg, split it open, and then just simply pass it back and forth. We're gonna use the sharp lip of the egg there to cut off, if you will, any of that extra egg white that's coming through. So we just get those beautiful yolks. Also, don't worry if they split. You're gonna be mixing them up anyway, so it's not that big a deal. But definitely do not throw away these egg whites. There's a lot of other great applications for egg whites. You can make meringues, you can make egg white omelets, you can make a host of things. Do not throw this out. Always use all you can with your ingredients. If I do find that I'm just a little short on my egg yolks, I will dip into these egg whites and add just a touch in there to get up to that 93. Egg whites don't have as much fat or richness as the egg yolks do, so I don't like to use a lot of them in my doughs, but having a little bit in there, especially get that egg content up to that 93, is just fine. I'm gonna simply hit my tear button there to zero out my scale, and now 38 grams of water. For those of you that are doing the math at home, this is about a 65% hydration of the dough between what I have in egg yolks and water here, and then our flour and salt mixture here. This gives the best texture, in my opinion. This is gonna give us the best stretch. It's gonna knead really well, but it's gonna really be firm when it all gets kneaded up. And honestly, this is the best stuffed pasta recipe that I've been able to come up with. Now, you can use a stand mixer or a food processor to make your pasta dough, and honestly, it is easier, but I'm gonna show you the hard way. I'm gonna show you the way that our grandmas made it, right? So we're gonna dump out our flour and salt mixture right onto the board there, and I'm gonna use the bottom of the bowl to make a beautiful little well right in the middle. This is where our egg yolks and water are gonna sit. We're gonna whip up these egg yolks real quick. I like to get them as incorporated as possible. Then we're gonna pour it right into our well there. The goal with this well is to incorporate the flour slowly and so that it forms correctly. So we're gonna go around and just stir, try to keep those levees from breaking right there on the end. And then just a little bit at a time, use the pines of your fork and just coax in a little bit more flour. The levee broke. What happens here? I haven't had a chance to incorporate everything yet. I'm gonna break out my trusty bench scraper and we're gonna get everything mixed together. I've learned over the years, there's no need to panic in the kitchen. There's always gonna be a way to make things right or to get things where you need them to be. So if it doesn't turn out perfect the first time, that's okay. If it doesn't go to plan, there can be a plan B. Let me get some of this flour. Right now I am just chopping to incorporate all of that liquid into our flour now. This is a really great way to ensure that we're getting each and every piece, each and every grain of flour hydrated. So it's easier to knead, it's easier to roll out, and it makes the absolute best pasta. Once we've gotten to the point that our liquid is incorporated and there's no extra runny around, we're gonna start kneading. First of all, we're gonna de-ring too. All right, we're gonna move it all together and really just knead this like any other dough. It might be a little sticky to start out with, but there is a lot of dry flour to still incorporate. It likes to hide right in the middle there. So I'm gonna knead, turn, and continue to knead. Any flour that does stick to the board, this is where you bring that bench scraper in and just bring it all up, clean up your board each and every time. Now, if the dough does start out a little wet, you might be inclined to add a little bit of flour to the board. I'm gonna ask right away that you don't do that. We got this hydration down perfectly to how we want it, and you can add bench flour, of course, but it's gonna be sticky for about the first 3 to 4 minutes of kneading. And once you start developing that gluten and everything gets incorporated, it's gonna be nice and tacky instead of being sticky, and that's exactly what you're looking for in a pasta dough. After our full 10 minutes of kneading are done, you can tell that we have a nice smooth dough. And the best way to check if your dough is ready to go is if you press your thumb down and it comes right back out like it does here, you have enough gluten development. If you press your thumb down and it just stays down there and doesn't pop back up, it's not ready to go. And just like that, I think we've got a winner. We're gonna roll this into a nice ball, cover it with some cling film, and then put that in our refrigerator for about 30 minutes so that gluten can relax and it's gonna be easier for us to roll out. Now that our pasta has spent some time in the fridge, we're gonna unwrap it from our cling film and start rolling it out. Now, I know that this is gonna be a lot more pasta than I need for just one raviolo that I'm making today. So what I'll do is go ahead and cut this dough in half and reserve the other half for later. This will keep into your fridge for about a day or two. Make sure that it is wrapped very tightly, no air can get in, but fresh pasta is fresh pasta. Use it as quickly as possible. Now, I told you earlier to not add any flour to the board because we were at the right hydration, and that's true. But now that this pasta has had the opportunity to absorb all of the liquid and we're gonna be rolling it out, we don't want it to stick to the board. So now is a good time to add a little bit of bench flour, and we're just gonna add a little bit, just a dusting. I don't wanna add a large amount of flour to this pasta. So we're gonna start with the rolling pin, just as you would, and roll this out. Now you can do this with a stand mixer or one of those attachments that helps you roll it really thin. But if you have used the right hydration and the right resting period for your pasta, there is no reason why you can't roll it out to the exact thinness that you need on your own. I'm looking at this right here. This is way too thick for what I'm looking for, so we're gonna keep working on it. Don't forget, you can roll it out the long way here too. If your rolling pin does stick, instead of dusting flour on top of your dough, dust your rolling pin. You'll notice that when I roll this out, it doesn't immediately spring back. And what that means is we have created a good gluten structure in this dough, but then by allowing it to rest, we are able to manipulate it and make it be a larger dough. My goal here is for this to be transparent. We're not quite there, but we're getting there. Feeling the dough right now, we have amazing elasticity. The dough feels strong when I pull it. It doesn't feel like it's gonna tear. And that's what we're looking for to get that signature bite that you'd love to get from fresh pasta. If you have a cutting board that has any sort of logo on it, a good way to figure out if this is the right thickness is if you can see the logo through your pasta. So I'm gonna roll this out until I can see that MasterChef logo coming right through. Look at that. The M's right there. So as you can see now, we've made a lot of effort here. Some beautifully thin pasta, just blanketing right over. I think this is ready to make raviolo. Now we're gonna move on to this beautiful mushroom cream sauce. Now, in the finale, I utilized morel mushrooms, and I used dried morel mushrooms, and I did that for a couple of reasons. One, morel mushrooms are my all-time favorite mushroom. They have an absolutely beautiful flavor. Problem is, they have a short growing season, and then if you can find them, they are expensive. So today, I'm going with a mix of other dried mushrooms. There are some morels in here. I also have some oyster mushrooms, and I think some maitakes as well. Finding blends like this are going to be a lot cheaper than going for a morel mushroom, but they're still going to give great mushroom flavor. So we're going to dump those mushrooms into the pot, just cover them up with cream. So here I am using just about probably a half a pint of cream. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn this up to a high heat. Once it starts to bubble, we are going to shut off the heat, cover it up, and let those steep for about 15 minutes. After the mushrooms have steeped, rehydrated, and given all their beautiful flavor into this cream, all we're gonna do is strain this into another cup or bowl. Always clean up after yourself. And then we'll reserve this for our final plating. Now, if you'd like, you can go through and pick off every single one of these leaves yourself. But what I've found is the easiest is to take a very sharp knife and just gently shave at those leaves. This way we're not gonna get those big stems that aren't gonna chop up or taste quite as good or look quite as good. They also have a little different texture to them. We're really just looking to get those leaves. So just scrape them off like that. Once you've got your parsley right here, this is another thing that I found over the years has really helped me, is I press it down, almost compress it all the way, and try to treat this as still just one big leaf and compress it all together. This is gonna give you a better surface area for your knife to cut through, and it's gonna help you get a beautiful slice every single time. Then just grip it, turn it, and we're gonna go the other way. Now this ricotta mixture could not be easier. We're gonna take some fresh ricotta cheese right into the bowl. Now, the amount you put in is gonna depend on how many raviolos you're making. Whoops. We're gonna put in probably a good 3/4 of a cup there. And the goal here is to season it pretty simply. We don't want any flavors to overtake others. We just want it to be one cohesive dish. So we're gonna take that parsley that we chopped up earlier. It's gonna give it a little bit of earthiness. It's gonna pair well with that mushroom. We wanna see a little bit of green in there. Of course, some salt. Ricotta generally doesn't have a ton of taste to it, so a little bit of salt is gonna waken that up. I bet I'm putting in about a half teaspoon here. And then just to lift this dish a little bit, because it is a little bit heavy, there's egg yolk, which is fat, there's ricotta cheese, and then it's in a cream sauce, which is more fat. We're gonna zest a little bit of lemon in there as well. I wanna take this time to show you the best way, in my opinion, to zest a lemon. A lot of times you see people just go at it just like this, which it does zest the lemon, but you risk getting into the pith, and then you're really just making little spots all over and you don't get a good, clean zesting. What I want you to do is take your zester just like this, hold it upside down. So you're holding it, this is the side that you grate on. You want that down. You're gonna hold your lemon in your other hand, press that zester right up against the lemon using your left hand, and you're gonna twist left, and your right hand is gonna twist right to perfectly zest that lemon. Now again, I don't want to add too much. This is probably going to be just about a teaspoon in there, and that's going to be a perfect way to brighten up this ricotta. Going to get that all mixed together
You can see the little flecks of parsley in there. You can see a little bit of the lemon zest as well. And that is exactly what we're looking for in this dish. Now you'll see a little later when we end up constructing these raviolos, but the best way to put this ricotta into our raviolo is gonna be a piping bag. And the best way to get the ricotta into this piping bag is to take a long, slender vessel like this, put in the piping bag, and then drape the edges over just like that. That way we can easily fill this piping bag. It keeps it open and standing up. We don't get any of that cheese along the edges up here where we might get it on our hands, so we stay nice and clean. Load it up. Pull those edges up all the way down with a twist. And we're ready to go. All right, so now that we're looking good, I am gonna split this dough in half because I'm gonna make the raviolo here and lay this half right over top to make the top of the raviolo. I've seen a lot of people use their cutters and cut out little circles just all over and then try to lay those on top of one another. The problem with that is that those circles are the same size and we are adding height by adding that ricotta cheese and that egg yolk in there. And so that top portion is gonna be way too small to cover everything and it's gonna be way too tight inside. So this is the best way that I've found to make the raviolo. Do you remember this ricotta from earlier? We are gonna pipe on a beautiful circle. This is gonna fully encompass the egg yolk. And so imagine about an egg yolk size. And then we want to, just like I said, create a nest. So I like to go up 1 or 2 swipes all the way around so that egg yolk will fit perfectly right inside there. We're gonna use that same technique that we used for separating the eggs for the pasta when we do it here. So we're gonna crack the egg and into the bowl, we're gonna very gently strain out the whites. This time it is very important not to break that egg yolk and to get as much of the white out as possible. We're gonna take that beautiful egg yolk right there in the shell, right into the middle of that ricotta. So because this pasta is the correct hydration, it may not want to stick to itself right away. So what I like to do is take a little spray bottle and very gently mist the bottom dough so that it will come together just like glue. Now, one thing to watch out for when making a raviolo is you don't want any air to be trapped in here. You want this to be airtight. Otherwise, the raviolo could explode in the water. So I like to start at one side. My fingers are directly behind the pasta here, and I go right up and around my ricotta cheese and just gently drape it, making that circle, trying to eliminate any creases if possible as well. You see any air bubbles, be sure to try to force them out. I press down gently. Again, we don't want to break that egg yolk, but we do want to get any extra air out of this pasta. All right, this is starting to look really, really good. Now I'm pushing around to make sure that these are sticking together and that we're gonna get one beautiful cohesive raviolo. But I also like to take my cutter and upside down. This part is not sharp. And so I'm gonna go around it just like this to make a beautiful uniform circle, as you can see right there. Now, if you get to this point and you do have any air bubbles, I'm gonna try to find one here. There's just a little bit of air right there. Take a very sharp knife, one little poke. It's gonna pinch all the air out and then press down again to seal that back up. Then it's like it never happened. Beautiful. I'm gonna set our cutter right here over top, push and twist to help seal that in. And we are left with one beautiful egg yolk raviolo. Let's get this in the water. Once we've reached a boil, we're gonna gently place our raviolo in the water and cook for 2 minutes. When our 2 minutes is up, we're gonna once again very carefully take our raviolo out of the water, and then we're gonna get it dressed in the sauce. Let's go. We're gonna get our pan on the heat
immediately with that mushroom cream that we made earlier, just a little bit, and turn that on to get that heated up. We're gonna drop the raviolo in our mushroom cream and swirl to coat. Now again, you still have to be gentle with this because there is an egg yolk in there that we do not want to crack yet. Putting the pasta in the cream is also gonna help thicken up our cream sauce a little bit. The residual starches from our pasta is gonna act as a thickener, just as if we added cornstarch or a roux. All right, this is looking absolutely beautiful. I think it's time to plate it up. Into the bowl, we are gonna gently place our dressed raviolo with that sauce all over it. If you want, you can even drizzle a little bit of that extra mushroom cream all the way around. It's absolutely delicious, so I suggest it. We are gonna season this 2 different ways. One is gonna be with a grated Pecorino Romano cheese. Pecorino Romano is similar in texture to a Parmesan. However, this has a bit of a funkiness to it, if you will, and that pairs super, super well with the mushrooms. And then I am going to grate some fresh black truffle on top of this. Now, I understand that black truffles are not super accessible, not easy to come by, and they are expensive. So in this case, if you just did a little drizzle of a truffle oil over top, you get the exact same effect. You never have too much truffle, right? Now this dish definitely could use a little pop of color, and I'd love to add basil because I think the fragrance of the basil will play really well with everything else we have going on here. I could chiffonade the basil, which would be to roll it up tightly and slice it really, really thinly into ribbons. But I think what I'd like to do today is find the tiniest leaves of basil that I can and pick them and just gently place them on top of the raviolo. I think this gives a really cool vibe to it. It's intentional, and it's not just putting little slices kind of all over. This is a very earthy dish. There's a lot of mushrooms, there's a lot of cheese that impart those different flavors. And so adding in something that looks exactly like a leaf, I think is really fun. Maybe just one beautiful one in the center, those to the side. I've got some stuff up along the edges that I'd like to get rid of, so I have a damp paper towel here. I'm just gonna go all the way around the bowl, make sure it's nice and clean. And there we have a beautiful egg yolk raviolo. But I know what you're all thinking. What does the egg yolk look like? Well, let's check it out. Beautiful. That egg yolk mixes right in with that cream sauce. Absolutely indulgent and delicious. Let's get a bite. Look at that. Beautiful. Oh. That mushroom cream sauce just plays so well with that rich egg yolk. They're both rich, but it's not heavy. That lemon that we put in that ricotta cheese really, really bumps the acidity, and it makes it a lot lighter than you think it would be. I gotta get in for one more here. The pasta has a perfect bite to it without being underdone. I get this all around that cream sauce. I mean, that might be the perfect bite right there. I really hope this video has taught you how to make a really good pasta, how to utilize not only fresh mushrooms, but dried mushrooms as well, and to create something absolutely beautiful. I hope you enjoyed this plating style and you learned a little bit from where my thought process comes from and how I want a dish to look on the plate, and also some alternatives. It's fun to invest in the pasta rollers or the stand mixers that can get things done a lot easier and a lot quicker. But sometimes it's really fun just to do it with your hands too. Thank you guys for watching, and I really hope you make this raviolo.